Throughout human history, sacred places leave scars on the world. Stones are stacked, walls are raised, names are carved, footsteps harden into roads, and prayers settle into the dust. When archaeologists dig beneath ancient holy cities, the ground speaks back, sometimes softly, sometimes in thunder. Dig beneath Jerusalem, and you find temples layered like pages of a book. Dig in Egypt, and pharaohs rise from the sand exactly where history said they would be. Dig in Babylon, and the myths turn into bricks you can touch. But there is one city where the earth says nothing at all. No inscriptions, no ruins, no confirmed traces from the very era it is said to have reshaped the world. This is not about disbelief. It is not about disrespect. It is about silence. An archaeological silence so complete that it defies everything we know about how sacred history behaves. How does a place described as ancient, central, and eternally holy leave no physical memory behind? How does a city tied to prophets, pilgrimage, and global devotion vanish entirely from the record of the ancient world? And why, in the modern age of science, is no one allowed to look freely beneath it? Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep exploring history with clarity, calm, and courage. Now, let's begin. Archaeology has confirmed civilizations once thought legendary. The walls of Jericho emerged from dust. Babylon's grandeur was etched into clay tablets. Egyptian pharaohs were not poetic inventions. Their tombs still breathe with painted prayers. Sacred places across cultures leave material echoes because humans build, mark, and remember. Yet when scholars search for physical evidence tied to the earliest days of Islam in Mecca, the record collapses into absence. No confirmed mosques from the lifetime of Muhammad. No inscriptions mentioning pilgrimage activity from the 7th century. No urban layers clearly tied to an early religious center. In a world where even small caravan towns left coins, graffiti, and shrines, this void is extraordinary. Islamic tradition holds that Mecca was sacred long before Islam, that Abraham and Ishmael raised the Kaaba as a house of God, and that the city functioned as a major spiritual and commercial hub for Arabia. If this were so, archaeology should at least whisper in agreement. Instead, it says nothing. The silence deepens when external sources are consulted. Ancient Greek and Roman geographers were obsessive catalogers. They mapped trade routes, ports, cities, and tribal regions across Arabia. Frankincense roads were documented because empires taxed them. Yet Mecca does not appear. Not on 2nd century world maps, not in 1st century merchant manuals describing Red Sea commerce, not in Roman administrative records or Persian chronicles. Cities like Petra, Gera, and Palmyra appear repeatedly. Mecca does not. Jewish and Christian writings from late antiquity mention Arabian peoples, kingdoms, and sanctuaries. They reference deserts, tribes, and holy mountains. But again, Mecca is absent. Not criticized, not praised, simply unknown. If Mecca truly anchored pilgrimage and trade before Islam, why did the ancient world forget it completely? One might argue that archaeology simply has not had time. But this is not an untouched desert, waiting patiently for scholars. Excavation is actively restricted. Mecca is one of the most tightly controlled archaeological zones on Earth. Independent researchers are barred. Non-Muslim archaeologists are prohibited entirely. No open international digs. No transparent peer review. Compare this to Jerusalem, where tunnels beneath sacred ground reveal layers from multiple faiths. Or to Rome, where churches sit atop pagan temples, their foundations studied openly. When history is real, it survives scrutiny. When inquiry is forbidden, suspicion grows. Science does not fear questions. Only narratives do. Even if ancient evidence once existed, much of it is now gone forever. Over the last few decades, Saudi authorities have demolished the overwhelming majority of historic Mecca. Neighborhoods centuries old were flattened. Early Islamic structures vanished. Sites associated with Muhammad's family were erased or repurposed. The house traditionally identified as Khadija's was destroyed. Burial grounds of early Muslims were leveled. The alleged birthplace of Muhammad was transformed into a modern facility. Rising above it all, luxury towers now cast shadows over the Kaaba itself. International preservation groups voiced concern. Scholars protested quietly. But the bulldozers did not stop. When a civilization claims sacred guardianship, yet annihilates its own physical memory, the question is unavoidable. What was so dangerous about what lay beneath? Sacred status tends to amplify memory. Pilgrims write, merchants record, empires notice. Jerusalem appears in inscriptions, psalms, Roman decrees, and travel accounts. Babylon echoes through prophecy and poetry. Even pagan sanctuaries left offerings and dedications. But 7th century Mecca appears nowhere outside later Islamic writings. No Byzantine observer mentions a holy city drawing pilgrims from across Arabia. No Persian chronicler notes a rival spiritual center. The silence is not neutral. It is deafening. The puzzle deepens when architecture enters the conversation. Some of the earliest mosques ever built do not face Mecca at all. Their prayer orientation, or Qibla, points hundreds of kilometers north. Careful measurements using modern tools reveal striking consistency in this alignment. Research by figures such as Dan Gibson suggests these mosques faced Petra, not Mecca. Petra possessed features associated with early Islamic descriptions: a sacred stone, water sources, carved sanctuaries, and long-standing religious significance. If Mecca had always been the focal point, why would the earliest Muslims orient their prayers elsewhere? Sacred geography does not drift casually. It is defined early and defended fiercely. This unease is not limited to outsiders. Respected academics raised red flags decades ago. Patricia Crone and Michael Cook examined early Islamic sources and noticed how late they were written. Biographies of Muhammad appeared generations after his death. Detailed descriptions of Mecca's primacy emerged gradually, not immediately. This does not mean Islam was fabricated, but it does suggest its sacred geography may have evolved. When traditions are written long after events, shaped by expanding empires and theological needs, history can be reorganized to serve authority. Today, Mecca is one of the most visited religious destinations on earth. Millions arrive annually for Hajj and Umrah, fulfilling obligations that shape entire lives. The experience is profound for believers, but it is also immensely profitable. Pilgrimage generates tens of billions of dollars yearly through visas, hotels, transportation, and services. Luxury accommodations tower over the Kaaba. Global brands line sacred routes. Religious devotion and commercial enterprise now coexist seamlessly. This financial reality does not invalidate faith, but it complicates motive. When sacred geography underpins national revenue and global influence, questioning origins becomes inconvenient. What emerges is not a single revelation, but a pattern. A sacred city with no pre-Islamic footprint. External silence, where global awareness should exist. Archaeology forbidden, history erased, and narrative reinforced through repetition rather than excavation. This does not automatically disprove belief, but it does challenge certainty. It suggests that Mecca's central role may have been established after the rise of Islam, then projected backward into sacred history. Built not from the ground up, but from theology down. The most troubling detail is not what has been found, but that we are not allowed to look. When inquiry ends, belief turns fragile. When questions are banned, confidence gives way to control. Jesus once said, "If these were silent, the stones would cry out." Luke chapter 19, verse 40. In Mecca, the stones are silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are never allowed to speak. History invites us to dig. Faith invites us to seek truth. When both are forbidden, something deeper is at stake. Follow the evidence wherever it leads, even when it challenges what you were told. Like, share, and subscribe, because the more light reaches these questions, the harder it becomes to bury them.